Now, founded in 2002, Cenomi is the largest mall operator in Saudi Arabia. Well, amongst the malls in their portfolio, the Al Nakhil Mall in Riyadh and U-Walk in Jeddah. Well, Cenomi has just announced its Q3 results, and we're going to speak now to the CEO of Cenomi Centers, Alison Rehill-Erguven, who's going to tell us more about the company's performance last quarter and what plans Cenomi has moving forwards. Well, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. Your third quarter results have just been released. What did they tell us?
So, look, the first 9 months of this year have been very strong for Cenomi Centers. Third quarter especially has been strong when compared to 2024. What it tells us is that our revenue continues to grow on a like-for-like basis. For first 9 months was about 5.5% like-for-like growth over 2024 when we exclude Mall of Dhahran. Our EBITDA has also continued to grow. I believe we've come in at 22% for the first 9 months of the year. The quarter three was also incredibly strong. There are some very interesting events that happened in quarter three specifically, such as the insurance settlement for Mall of Dhahran, which took over 3 years. But we settled on a payment of about 250 million SAR. So, that obviously has beneficial aspects to our P&L and to the balance sheet. But operatingly, we're doing very, very well. It's a very well-oiled machine, and we just continue from year to year to go from strength to strength.
Okay, so revenues are up. Let's talk about sales. How did sales perform in Q3?
Yeah, you know what? Interestingly, it's a good question. Tenant sales and our turnover rent percentage are both up this year. One great example is Riyadh launched the metro I believe it was the beginning of this year, quarter four of last year. And we have one asset that is connected to that metro entrance. And I saw double-digit growth, not only in my footfall because of the new metro, but also in my turnover rent. So our turnover rent and our tenant sales have performed quite well this year, which coincides also with the fact that our footfall is up. So also for the first 9 months of this year, I have seen 98 million people come through our doors versus I think it was 91 like same period last year. So footfall's up over 6.5%. So when they correlate, your tenant sales should also go up at the same time.
Okay, well, that's a really interesting example, because anyone who's been to Riyadh knows traffic can be pretty heavy sometimes, and having assets on the metro map presumably means that the more the metro grows, the more you can assume footfall in your malls is going to grow.
In this case, yes.
Okay, let's talk about occupancy numbers. What are they doing at the moment? How are your malls performing?
So occupancy has remained relatively stable this year at around 92%. On average, our average occupancy is higher this year than last year. So that's also contributing to better tenant sales, better footfall, as well as the revenue increases.
Okay, so there are obviously lots of malls across the region, lots of malls in Saudi Arabia. What differentiates a Cenomi mall from another one?
If I speak from a B2B angle, our malls, on average, compared to our competitors, we have higher occupancy and we have higher leasing rates. Okay. If I compare them also to my competitors, but through a B2C lens, we again have higher occupancy, which leads to better customer visits, higher traffic, higher turnover. We just perform better. We have a dominant position. Fortunately, we're in 10 different cities across the kingdom, and we touch about 80% of the population. So we're a fantastic bellwether for retailers, and we have really strong retail partnerships. And I think that shows through in the tenant mix that we provide.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a bit about the mix in a mall. What's the ideal mix? Because, clearly there's a split between retail, entertainment, F&B. What's the secret sauce? What's the perfect ratio for those different areas?
That's a great question. When I first got here, so let's say in 21-22, the ratio was roughly 70% traditional retail, 30%, which was a combination of entertainment, food and beverage, services. We have shifted that. Now, I think we're landing at a 60 to 38 split at the moment, where 38 is now higher in food and beverage, in entertainment, in services, in lifestyle, salons, gyms, things that didn't really exist, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago are, at least in an open environment, shopping environment. We're doing more of that. And then in traditional retail, which was very fashion and transactional related, we're morphing more into tech, beauty, accessory, things that actually our research shows are just performing really, really well in the kingdom in terms of percentage of like total sales, total retail sales.
Now, Alison, I've gathered you've got some really exciting projects in the pipeline, haven't you? There's Westfield, there's new malls lined up for Jeddah and Riyadh that are apparently close to completion. Just give us a sense of what's in the pipeline.
Yeah, sure. So we have 6 projects in the pipeline today, which take us all the way out to about 2028, 2029. In May of this year, we signed an exclusive licensing and strategic partnership with Unibail-Rodamco Westfield for the Westfield brand exclusively to us in the kingdom. It's important because this brand really resonates very strongly with the Saudi consumer because they are well traveled, they are well educated, they are tech savvy, and they go to specific destinations. And there's a Westfield shopping center in those destinations, i.e. Paris, London, New York, LA. And so with that, we will be launching 3 new assets starting actually next month in December. We're rebranding one of our assets in the East. It's currently Nakheel Mall Dammam, and it will be Westfield Dammam, first week of December. And next year, we're in the development pipeline. We have 2 very large, beautiful flagship assets that are going to be launched in Q2 of next year, which will be Westfield Jeddah, and in Q3 next year, which will be Westfield Riyadh. And we are super excited about that.
I can imagine. It sounds extremely exciting. I mean, let's talk about the retail and mall ecosystem in Saudi Arabia. Is there anything you've noticed that sets it apart from other countries, perhaps in the region or more broadly?
I would say probably a decade ago, yes, just due to the constraints of how culture and life was then. But today, if you were to walk into any of my malls, you're going to you wouldn't know you're in Saudi Arabia. What does that mean? We have international brands. We have, wonderful design and beautiful fit out. It looks very international in terms of its standards and its design. And I would say that's true for me as well as some of my competitors. It's a very well understood landscape when you walk into a mall, and people are usually very surprised. So that's the misconception, is that it would look different, feel different, be different. It's not.
Okay, well, it certainly is the largest consumer market in the GCC. There are some 5 million households in Saudi Arabia, so the opportunities for retail are clearly enormous. Anything you can tell us about the habits or trends or anything that's emerging in the retail space there in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, I can hit that from a couple of different perspectives. So firstly, you're correct. Largest population in the GCC, 50% of the retail sales in the GCC just in Saudi Arabia. Also has a very high GDP when you compare to developed countries. So it is going from strength to strength. I think the projection for retail sales on a compounded annual average is more than 5% through 2030. So in terms of being a shopping center business, we're placed very well for that. Our research also shows us that there's a strong supply coming of real estate and retail real estate specifically for the kingdom. But when you compare that to the demand and population growth and tourism numbers, there's still a supply gap. And so again, we're positioned really well to fill that gap. If you look at GLA per capita, which is the gross leasable area by square meter per capita, Riyadh is 0.5 square meters per capita. Jeddah is the same. Compare that to Dubai, which is 1.4 square meters per capita, or Abu Dhabi, which is, I believe, 2.2 square meters per capita. So, those 2 cities or regions in this region are, at least a decade more advanced than Saudi is today in terms of its transformation and where it's going. But you can see that there's runway just in those metrics in terms of what we can build and how we can, service the community.
Okay, Alison, I mean, we're approaching the end of this show, so we'll have to be quite brief on this next one. I mean, you took up your role in 2022, and when you did so, you became, I believe, the first foreign female CEO of a public company in Saudi Arabia. So congratulations for that. And I'm just wondering, when it comes to women taking up senior positions, executive roles like yours in Saudi Arabia, how are you seeing things change?
Look, I've been here now for not quite 3.5 years. I've seen a lot of change in that 3.5 years. I've tried to also make change here, in that 3.5 years. For example, we have a graduate program, and as of, I believe, last year, we began ensuring that 50% of the grads we pick are female and 50% of the grads we pick are male. It wasn't like that before. So, I'm proud of that. I am seeing more senior females taking up more leadership positions, but I still think there's a lot to do. It's actually something that plays on my mind about maybe how how I can help, or how I will continue to lead by example, but I know that there's something bigger there to take hold of. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm thinking about it.
All right, Alison, just lastly, we're very much focused on the run-up to 2030. Obviously, Vision 2030 is something we talk about a lot on this channel. But then beyond 2030, there's the World Cup, and there's plenty of other very exciting events in the years ahead. What are your thoughts looking forward? What are you most excited about?
So, look, I don't know that there's any other place on earth right now that is as exciting to be in and be a part of, and to be a part of the building of, as Saudi Arabia, frankly. And I've lived in a lot of places in the world, and I've lived there usually in very dynamic time periods, like China, which was before this assignment, pre-COVID. So I think I feel very humbled and honored to be a part of that nation building. And this company is absolutely a part of that in terms of, Vision 2030 wants to move away from oil, go to more services. We're right there. We're front and center. More retail sales, more F&B. We're right there, front and center. So it's super, super exciting to not only watch the journey, but be a part of it.
Okay, well, we really appreciate your taking the time to speak to us. Alison Rehill-Erguven, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.